Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.
Good evening, good morning, almost everybody, Leafs fans that are here. Welcome to Game Over Toronto.
I sacrificed sleep for that. To be fair, I probably wasn't going to sleep anyway. I mean, you know how I am. I'm just like, sleep. Who needs it? But that was something. That was a hockey game for sure.
It was a 6-3 loss to the Arizona Coyotes in Game 36, and a couple days ago they played a game that sort of looked familiar to that, but they happened to win it. And tonight
they happened to win it. Yes,
they played a similar game and they did not win it. So let's talk about it tonight.
It was sluggish. I felt that, it just wasn't there. Like in the first period, I thought, wow, they're dominating them. I thought it looked like an Anaheim Ducks type game. You know what I mean? Like it was like, okay, look, this team, they're ready to put the hammer down on an inferior opponent. And then they hit two posts. They're like, nah, we're good. No more hockey tonight.
It didn't even start off that well. They got scored on 42 seconds into the game.
They did. Well, I was gonna put that aside. I was gonna say, okay, Justin Hull tripped and took down his teammate with him. Everybody fell down, but I wasn't gonna be mean about that because I'm like, okay, they dominated right after that. They're playing their hearts out. I'm like, okay, whatever. Mistakes happen. I've fallen on my ass more than I can count. But after they hit those posts, I'm like, no. It looked like the game just shifted over at the Mullet Arena.
The Mullet Arena, all of it. And I hope some of you bet against Toronto tonight because you should have. And if you didn't, if you think you know which way it's going to go, make your bet. Sports Interaction. Whether it's hockey, football, basketball, Sports Interaction has you covered. Bet pregame, live and player on one of our many prop bets. Sports Interaction makes it easy to deposit, play, and cash out. Join now and see all that sports betting has to offer. Want to bet? Head to sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. 19 plus, please play responsibly. I know I stole that from you. You were going to do it, but I was feeling the vibe. I was feeling the vibe.
You know what? I might have forgotten.
I should have bet against the Leafs tonight. I should have.
No, you should have. I would have if I was inclined to do that, I would have picked Michael Carcone to score a goal because it wouldn't even be like Nick Ritchie already had his goal. Like he already had his way to stick it to the
redemption
Leafs.
Goal.
No, Michael Carcone, because I'm surprised I even remember that dude because he played maybe one game of the show. But I'm like, I saw the name and I'm like, no, he has to score. He's so obscure as a former Leaf that he must score. He didn't. So I guess we can count that as a win.
It was McBain, like the Simpsons character. That had the Leafs over tonight. He was the best player on the ice on both teams tonight, in my opinion. But before we get into the game, everybody, we do have a very special guest with you tonight, as advertised. We have a very special guest waiting to come on to talk to us, to talk to you, to talk about the game. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your virtual hands together for the one and only Kyle Cushman. What's up, buddy?
Hello, friends. How are we doing?
I'm upset that I made you watch all of that. I'm terribly sorry. We keep having bad luck with guests. When we had Dan O'Toole on, they lost too, didn't they?
They beat up Anaheim 7-1.
Right.
When we had
maybe
Edge
I'm
on,
the problem.
No.
Yeah.
When we had Edge on, they beat Tampa, and it was like, thank God they won against, so we could keep the good vibes for
no kidding.
Yeah.
The 10-time WWE champion when he came on. That was great. But we're happy to have you, Kyle, to help us dissect what we just saw. Help us to cleanse our eyes of that game.
We need to purge all of that.
Yeah. Great word. Good choice. For starters, I can't believe you brought up Michael Carcone before I was on. Come on, that's my guy.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I mean, I
gotta save the niche players for me when I'm on.
I knew you were in the weeds. That's why we like to have you on. Sometimes for prospects and stuff, I feel like people.
For the players nobody cares about, I'm your guy.
No, it's okay, Kyle. Later on, you can just name drop some of the rookies that are doing really well in all the tournaments and make Fuad look silly. That's what you can do.
Hey, listen.
Pronunciation game. Yeah, we'll do that.
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, I thought. The first period. We kind of buried the lead here. Mike Rielly. I was going to say Morgan Rielly returned to the lineup, and now they lost, so they must trade him now. That's what Hockey Twitter is going to say because they were saying that when they were winning.
I was going to say they were saying that before he even got back in the lineup.
Oh yeah, Yeah. I mean, I knew that was going to happen. As soon as they started losing, I'm like, that's the take. I didn't even check, but I mean, I'm sure that's the take that's going off right now is like, yeah, okay. People are going to be like, well, are we better without Morgan Rielly? That should be that's our radio host thing. We should be like, coming up, should the Leafs trade Morgan Rielly? That's what we should do that. like the radio tease if we had a break coming up. But
they brought up the stat for the power play with and without Rielly in this season. With Rielly, they're 6th in the NHL with 28.1. Okay, without Rielly, they're 17%, and they're tied for 26th. 20 point standing difference. Holy shit.
So he's good. So he's a good player.
On the power play, apparently. And,
apparently.
And the 5 forward line is 20% and is 19th, which I don't like the 5 forward power play. But that's okay.
I'm intrigued by it.
I want to like it. I want them to produce.
I like it. I like weird stuff with hockey.
I think they can do it. I just think they haven't yet.
Well, I mean, PP2 is the best thing on planet Earth now.
Oh.
Connor Timmins, the GOAT.
I was like,
sign him.
Look
5
at
years.
this.
5 by 5. Here we go.
It's like,
when do we get the Connor Timmins offer sheet talk? Pending RFA.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Yeah, they're gonna we should just start that now.
The Oilers are gonna take him for sure. Come on.
5 years,
you know
8 years,
coming.
8 million. 8 years, 8 million.
Yeah, he's gonna be Darnell Nurse's new forever team partner. That's what he's gonna do.
New connection.
Imagine. Oh my gosh. It wouldn't honestly surprise me. Would it surprise you,
Kyle?
Kyle?
Dubas' dream.
Listen, and Michael Bunting screwing with a couple of Sioux Greyhounds. I'm pretty sure Kyle Dubas was like, "Don't, Michael. They're going to be your teammates in 2 weeks."
Can affect team chemistry.
Hey, that's enough of that.
Gonna sit him down and be like, "Listen, I'm trying to collect them all here."
Absolutely. Everybody in the chat is saying all kinds of things about Rielly. There's a plethora, a smorgasbord, if you were, of decisions. First came back with Rielly, and the D broke down so bad at times. It's true. There was. It
is true. I mean, like, yeah, I had one something with some combo of fire Dubas, fire Shanahan, and fire Shammy. It's bad enough that Dubas Shanahan experiment has failed in the postseason, but during the regular season as much. And I'm like, oh boy, we were back to that now, are we not? No, I want to calm that down a bit. Okay, I mean we're it's an 82 game season, everyone. You know, normally I like to be, I normally will lean into Mr. Doom and Gloom, but I think it's very hard to do that when they were like 15-2 in their last few games. Like they're like 15-3. I think we should breathe a little bit, just have a deep breath. Everybody take a deep breath.
Everybody all together.
Yeah.
What, you're telling me the Bruins and the Hurricanes lost to Arizona recently too?
And
what?
Colorado.
That's impossible.
They couldn't.
And the LA Kings.
Only the Leafs lose, okay? Only the Leafs lose bad
That's
games.
what I heard.
Well, and there's a couple people saying that it was a blowout tonight. It wasn't. It was, and Robert's right in the chat. I'm sorry, chat, if you believe that it was a blowout tonight. It was 2 empty nets. They were tied.
They were like what, like 5 minutes away from overtime or something?
Yeah, and
I mean, it's Arizona, but
it's not great to lose to Arizona, right? And like at the end when McBain got the goal from Lawson Krause and they're like losing their minds, because they didn't think that they were gonna win, right? Like, did you see that?
I will say.
Go ahead.
No, sorry. Go ahead. I will say they're pretty scrappy. They're a pretty scrappy bunch. I mean, for a team that's supposed to be in the Bedard race, they're pretty scrappy. Like, I know that they're at home and they have a unique home ice advantage. We'll just say that. But I didn't see the Anaheim just folding like a cheap lawn chair. They played pretty hard. Not to say they're a great team, but they looked like a professional hockey team somewhat, aside from their surroundings and where they play in. But it's hard to say that, but they look like a professional-ish hockey team.
Yeah, they've got a lot of guys on their roster that are kind of fighting for their NHL lives, whether it's young prospects trying to make their first impact in the NHL or a bunch of kind of 30-year-old veterans that are on one-year deals looking to stick another year. So when you have that kind of unique mix of players, like you got Nick Bjugstad up on the top line and stuff like that, getting a goal in the first minute, when you got players like that on the ice, you're going to get those kind of unique situations where they're a bit of a tough team to play against sometimes.
Well,
so it's kind of a Vegas vibe. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, and they have sort of like the St. Louis Blues and Detroit Red Wings thing where it's like, I forgot that they were on that team.
Yeah,
like I forgot Shane
say.
Gostisbehere was a Coyote, and Zach Cassian is that. I heard the Paul's name and I was like, wait, what? Like I totally. I mean, maybe just because it's so far away, but like I just totally forgot that it's like the island of lost toys over there.
It felt like I don't know if Kyle if you follow basketball, but I know last year during the whole like COVID outbreak, and then half these teams were like taken out by the virus, and they were playing all these obscure players that I forgot existed. I was like, oh, I remember that guy. So it's kind of like that's what Arizona Coyotes are like right now. So yeah, but it's not the best way to go out tonight, but that viewing, that was quite the viewing experience as a watcher on television, because I felt like I was watching the OHL on the old Rogers TV community TV channel. That was, I don't even remember I don't even think it exists anymore. I think they turfed it, but woof, that was an experience watching it.
There's no way that the lighting is that bad, right? Like it had to be something with like the main Sportsnet white balance or like something. Because I feel like I've seen clips from Arizona this year, which I don't know. I let's just say I get paid.
Why?
To do that. Yeah, let's just go with that. But I can't remember it being as bad as what, like the main camera just looked off. It was like a weird tint, and then every replay camera was a different shade of white. It had the Twilight
filter, like the cool filter.
Yeah, somebody said that.
It was, I don't know. You know what? It's one of those games that they're trying to make you forget. So.
Well,
yeah, I mean,
hope I forget it. Jeez.
I think the main camera was like literally like one of those like 2008 webcams. Like
yeah, exactly.
Logitech,
just a guy doing this.
Logitech.
It's a guy just doing this as the like following the puck. Just
it's the size of a baseball.
Man, honestly, guys, get yourselves a friend or a family member that loves you, like Gary Bettman loves the Arizona Coyotes and believes in the Arizona Coyotes. We should all be
so lucky. We should all be so lucky.
Oh my god! There was a meme I saw. There's a meme I saw like early this season, and it just showed the Kachina logo, and it showed Gary Bettman, and he's like, "I love you," and the Kachina logo says, "Please let me die."
Yeah, that meme has made the rounds. And you know the sad thing is, like, I think the Arizona Coyotes jersey that they were using tonight is one of the nicer jerseys. It's super unique, but the lighting, you can't see it. It's just brown. It looks, even though it's like terra color, whatever that means. It's like terracotta and then just blob. Even when they're doing like the zoomed in version, you're like, oh yeah, there's like the cactus. You can see the rocks. But from afar in the TV angle, it was just, oh, it's so terrible. It's so disappointing.
Yeah, I preferred the purple one they did last year, but it's such a unique design. Like you can't really go wrong with it.
Unless the lighting is that bad, and then you can.
Well,
apparently,
that's the building itself.
Yeah,
you gotta somehow pull it out for away games.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm a month away from being 20 fine and 29, 20 fine. See, and I've been watching this Arizona Coyotes story since I was in the 5th grade. I remember reading it in the newspaper in class, and I hope they just approve that Tempe Arena, and I'm happy for their city. Honestly, I think so. I think there's like a
public vote.
Oh,
and, yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff they still have to go through. But
yeah, but
they're gonna get it. Let's be real.
Just get it done. Like, just get it done. Just make Uncle Gary happy. Gary
Bettman will mail everybody $1,000 check to try and convince them in order to vote yes that they want this stupid arena. Like don't get me wrong. I think Coyotes fans deserve that, because I think there is like a weird niche in the Southwest that is sort of untapped, except for the Coyotes. Like the Vegas has it, but that's more of like a show arena. Whereas like, you know, more obscure fans in the Southwest don't really have anything. Right. And I think that there is an opportunity. It's just like you said, like, just let me die. Like they've been struggling for so long, for so hard, for so long. Kyle, you know, you like you said, you get paid to watch all of this. Like when you watch games like this, do you look at the Coyotes and you go, okay, but you shouldn't be beating the Leafs. So what the fuck is happening?
It's one of those teams where it's like, oh, I feel bad for those fans that have to watch 82 games of this, where you get the odd fun game where you get the win. It's like the 2015 Leafs and 2016 eras where it was like, oh, hey, they won. That's fun. And it's like genuinely a surprise every time they do it. But It's especially tough when like you don't have Dylan Gunther on the roster right now. Like the young guys at least have like a few young players to watch. But like when Barrett Hayton is scoring his first goal of the season like 2 weeks ago, it's like oof, we're in a dire situation right now. But they've got a ton of draft picks and draft capital. They've got a few really fun prospects coming up, and we'll see how the draft lottery goes this year and how things shake out their way. But regardless of whether they're picking in the top 10, they'll be getting a good player again this year. So it's a tough one where you've got all the arena stuff going on right now, plus a just brutal roster where there's not a lot of bright spots, and your best player is constantly in trade rumors and all these different things. Where it's nice for them to kind of get these this nice little win streak that they've had recently. I think they're like 6-1-1 in their last 8, something like that, and a few big wins. So.
Well, hey, they're going to get Austin Matthews, okay? That's what I keep hearing. Austin Matthews is going to go play at Mullet Arena, and he's going to get his business degree on the side at the university. He's going to be like, you know what? I'm here.
He's already done the ASU photo shoot, so.
There you go.
It's true.
Oh, boy. I mean, I don't think the arena will be ready before he's proposed. No. Agency. I don't think, right? Like, they don't even have a shovel purchased, let alone in the ground, so.
Yeah.
Speaking of the draft, Kyle, do you think it's going to be Connor Bedard or Coyote Bedard? Where do you think he's going to go?
I hope it's Columbus, actually.
Ooh.
Bit of a spicy take there.
Bit of a dark horse there.
Because Johnny Gaudreau and Patrick Laine with Connor Bedard between them is just hilariously fun.
That's pretty fun.
And then you add Kent Johnson on the second line, Cole Sillinger in there, David Jiricek, Stanislav Svozil coming on the back end. Like, Columbus low-key has a lot of fun players coming up. So if they added like that kind of high-end piece, like obviously Columbus is in that A-tier market that you hope he goes to. But in terms of like current roster construction, that'd be a fun place to slide right into.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily call Anaheim or
Arizona
an A-team, but I see what you're saying for sure.
At least like California marker or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. I would rather him go to Columbus than Chicago. I think we can all agree on that.
To me, I want aside from the whole controversy with Chicago, but we don't have to get into it now. That there's no players on that team, like because again, I mean, in the NHL draft is not like it's not like the NBA where it's like one superstar legend, you're set. I mean, we've seen with Edmonton how long it took them to get far in the playoffs with two of the best players in the game on their lineup, right? In their lineup. So I personally, just for fun and because we're friends with them, I want Vancouver to somehow get Connor Bedard. I don't know
that's gonna happen. The best possible scenario. That'd be awesome.
I mean, it's a grumpy market. I feel for Vancouver fans, like I actually have a kinship of what they're going through now. It's exactly what Leafs fans are going through in 14-15. Like, team refuses to pull the plug. They're like, let's just go and get the playoffs with an obviously flawed roster, and they just so stubborn to trade their pieces. And I just want some happiness for our friends in Vancouver because we have Game Over Vancouver as well. So shout out to them if you're listening.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you can have like the hometown superstar like play for the hometown team, like that's like the stuff you like dream about. So I don't like they need like quite a bit of lottery luck if that were to happen. I can't see them like because they're like weirdly in the playoff race as well right now. But
Pacific. Come on.
Yeah, that's exactly it, right? Everybody in the West except for like 3 teams. So, but that would be awesome to see.
Yeah. So we talked a lot about this team. So let's go back to the Leafs game itself. We talked a lot about all of the bad things that happened in this game, and rightfully so. But it's a new year coming up. I try to be positive all the time here. I'm trying to find the more positives. So I thought I saw a couple of positives in this game, namely one Alex Kerfoot, not somebody that you associate with being positive in this season. He's been likely pretty much invisible, but the last couple games, extremely active. The goals he scored at the shorty last game, and then the goal he scored this game, he was really battling to get it, and then he finally was able to tap it in.
And he gets rewarded.
And on the entries, that's the one thing that he's been doing well all season long. Like if you follow along with what Cam Schron's been tracking, Alex Kerfoot's been one of the highest volume guys in terms of controlled entries and entries overall. And usually that means that there's some kind of offense that'll follow. This season, it's been a lot of just kind of wasted minutes with Kerfoot and Engvall and those kind of guys on the ice where
lots of wide
nothing
pucks.
against, but nothing really created offensively. But
For sure.
when you get that rate of controlled entries, eventually when you're creating that, you're gonna get some decent bounces going your way. And it seems like Kerfoot's kind of in that streak right now where he's got a handful of goals recently and a busy game where that line overall led the Leafs in shots for and a really solid game in terms of getting some decent looks and of course getting the goal right beside the net, which is exactly what Alex Kerfoot's gonna do in terms of scoring. We've seen his shot time and time again. He's not going to beat a lot of goaltenders off of the rush, but if he can be busy in and around the net and bang some home, that's exactly what they're paying him $3.5 million to do.
A little bit of an overpay, but that's okay. We still love him.
And another positive, Pontus Holmberg scoring a goal. You know, this is a guy that literally I don't like. I'm gonna poll Leaf fans. How many of you knew who this guy was? And you'll all lie and say you did. You probably did not. But I liked it. I mean, I've really liked as far as being a third line, fourth line center. Like these are the kind of guys you need that make no money to fill out your bottom six, right?
I love Pontus Holmberg. He's been a guy that has been strangely on my radar for a while, just in terms of Dubas. The thing with him in the draft has always been he always trades down. He always looks to accumulate picks, and it catches your attention when he either trades up or trades into a selection. And one of the first times that he did that in the 2018 draft was to draft Pontus Holmberg at the beginning of the 6th round. And since then, he's just year over year gotten better and better. Started as a 4th liner in the SHL, worked his way up to being a top line guy last year on a really solid team, won playoff MVP the year before that. And was somebody that Dubas in the offseason kind of mentioned as a prospect that they thought could step in and play a role sooner than later. And sure enough, with a lot of different centers kind of deep on the roster, didn't make the roster out of camp, but had a really solid preseason, got some time with William Nylander throughout the preseason, impressed, went down with the Marlies. Didn't quite have the point production, but I've been tracking some Marlies games this season, and he was somebody that consistently stood out in terms of creating scoring chances, carrying the puck through the neutral zone. Sure enough, he gets a call up, and he's been a lineup mainstay ever since. We've seen basically every other player that's come into the lineup basically rotate, whether it's the likes of Nick Robertson or Dryden Hunt or Dennis Mulligan or any of these guys that have been kind of on the fringes. They've all rotated. Pontus Holmberg, since he's been recalled the second time, hasn't come out of the lineup. And we saw it today with Mitch Marner calling him a stud, Sheldon Keefe early in his tenure saying that they try to find mistakes in his game and they don't find any. And it's he plays such a center's game where he's always in the right place, always supporting the play, and in the right place at the right time. When we saw that with him getting rewarded with some PP2 time and getting that goal on the second unit there.
Well, and Matthew's even praising him between the first and second period too, right? Yeah. Like all anybody says is good things about him. Also, quick shout out to our Game Over Vancouver friends that are in the chat. You shook the Vancouver
you heard me.
tree,
I said nice things about you,
and they heard you and they came running. So
yeah, I know. I will say I Kyle Dubas is not a perfect general manager. I've been critical of him in the past, but the guy's got an eye for talent, especially on the fringes, like lower rounds, guys around the league. Like he knows things that most people don't, as far as most of his colleagues don't. Like he has a way of evaluating which guys can actually contribute in the NHL. I mean, maybe not on the superstar level, but getting these guys on the fringes, he's done a really good job at that. I can say that for sure.
Yeah, and part of that is also building a scouting staff that you trust, and everybody has the same mindset in terms of the characteristics that they're looking for to fill out the lineup. And the Leafs have done a really good job on a roster where you need to find those kind of cheap guys that you can round out the bottom 6 and have filler options that can step in. And the Leafs have a lot of kind of 4th line, 3rd pair defense options because of that ability to identify the certain type of players that they like that can kind of be a bit of plug and play.
Well, and there's proof of that in the contracts that players that have left have gotten, right?
Yeah.
Like Ilya Mikheyev went off to Vancouver, got a nice little raise. Leaf fans, you guys in the chat know that Jack Campbell went to Edmonton. Zach Hyman went to Edmonton. They both went to make more money than they could have made on the Leafs. And, good for them, but also, maybe we have sort of shortchanged the Leafs and how well they've taken some of these players and made them look because they've supported them in the right way, right? Like, we know what Jack Campbell looks like this season. Mikheyev has been good, but he hasn't been fantastic. And Hyman has been everything Hyman has ever been because it's Hyman. But, like even if we look at like Andreas Janssen, he's not playing particularly well these days, right? And like there's
been waived twice.
Yeah, exactly, right? But he was on the second line. And
yeah, that guy fell off.
Yeah.
I was like, I forgot he existed. I was like, because I remember when he was playing with us, I'm like, oh, this guy's going to be a really good player. Like, he's going to be a 60-point player.
Yeah, he was a fun player.
Up there. Yeah, but
Kapanen too, right? Same era, same time. Went off, made a whole bunch of money with Pittsburgh. Kapanen got traded, but then he signed a nice long contract. And again, how many times has he been healthy scratched? How many times has he been waived? And I think it's good that we didn't sign those guys to long-term contracts because they didn't work out as well as other teams thought that they were going to. So I think that definitely Dubas isn't perfect, but he's definitely dodged more than one or two bullets at this point. And it's been great. And oh, look, we have trolls in the chat. Nice to see you all.
Trade Rielly. Sorry, I'm just making fun of one of the people in the chat. He just said trade Rielly like 10 times, and I'm like, okay. Let me call Kyle Dubas and tell him.
Are they talking about Riley Nash because they don't know how to spell Morgan Riley?
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Kyle Cushman with the
watching
burn.
the Spangler Cup, something like that.
A little salty. I love it. So even though he wasn't one of the Leafs prospects, did you know anything about Dryden Hunt when the Leafs traded for him? Did you all of a sudden have to turn around and go, "Who the fuck is this guy?"
Like I knew the name. He was a guy a few years ago that was like a fairly notable WHL free agent just because he scored like 50 something goals. He scored 58 goals in 2016. He was signed as a CHL free agent, which we don't really see as often. We always hear about the NCAA free agents, but it's not as common. We see players signed to NHL deals as kind of overage CHLers, but he had a really good season there with Moose Jaw, signed an NHL deal with Florida, and was just kind of a guy in the AHL where he had some decent offensive numbers. A checker, signed a deal with the Rangers, played a little bit for them, but he's a guy that is your typical fourth liner where he crashes, bangs, plays that physical style. You hope he can chip in a little bit of offense, but in the Leafs kind of acquiring this guy, they were looking to add another kind of younger version of that kind of Kyle Clifford type, Wayne Simmons type, where it's somebody that can crash and bang on a fourth line. We saw the physicality today where he hits somebody from behind and fights him about 10 seconds later.
First game. He is everybody's uncle's favorite player now.
Don't worry. I saw Twitter there where everybody's favorite, even though he's the worst Corsi for on the team. But anyway,
look at him. He's a face puncher.
He drew a penalty in the first, right?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, but yeah, it was the stylistic fit where it's a fourth line checker. We'll see what he can do if he sticks on the fourth line longer term. If they mix Joey Anderson back in, his handedness kind of works against him. He plays mainly the left wing. Zach Aston Reese obviously has that spot down locked, but there's nothing wrong with some competition there. He's a decent defensive player as well. So we'll see if he ends up getting waived once the Leafs get a little bit healthier. If he clears, could be just a little bit of depth, but really not anybody that I imagine will play any playoff games or anything like that.
So just to call it out right now, I just want to say everybody in the chat, thanks for joining us and being here on as the clock strikes midnight on tonight's game. But thanks for being here, everybody, and I just want to remind you to like, subscribe, share it to all your friends. If you do share it, I will make you a plate of baklava. My mom's baklava. No, I will not. It's very expensive and it takes a lot of time. But just know the thought was there. But do it now. Share it and like it and all the things. Oh, man. So I think that game looks like that game was – I don't think it's – I mean, people are starting to say, oh, it might start a trend, downtrend. You know how Leaf fans are. It's like one bad thing goes wrong. It's like, the eyes start to ball – like the pupils dilate and everyone gets a little –
Hey. Start doing that.
Well, it could just – might just be a lull. I think it's one of those burn the tape, make sure you try again next time. But I want to talk to you a bit about what you're doing with the World Juniors and how you're covering all the prospects that are going out, whether draft eligible prospects or ones that are already drafted and in the World Juniors. So One thing I didn't know was that there are no Leafs in the world, or no Leaf prospects in the World Juniors. Is that concerning at all to the Leafs organization?
No, not really is what I'd say. For starters, they have somebody that probably should be there in Ty Voigt, 2021 fifth rounder, where he leads the OHL in scoring, but pretty surprisingly wasn't even invited to Team USA's camp. That's a team that could probably use a little bit more depth scoring in Team USA, and surprisingly left Ty Voigt and Voigt's line mate as well, and Sasha Pastizov, who was actually at the last World Juniors for Team USA as well. So that's a player that probably should be there. They also have Nikita Grebyankin over in Russia, who would be U20 eligible. Obviously, Russia is banned from the tournament. He's somebody that would have been in that mix as well. So there's a couple guys there, but overall, the World Juniors isn't the best way to kind of evaluate how strong a prospect pool is. When you look at the Leafs, especially when they're not drafting as high, you're looking to find some value guys deeper in the draft. And if they had drafted somebody instead of Matt Nyes in 2021, that was a 2003 birth date instead of a late 2002, well, then they'd have somebody there. But I think a lot of people would probably prefer to have Matt Nyes than somebody drafted a little bit later than him, some stuff like that. So is it great? Obviously not. There's only two teams that have it. The Leafs are one, Pittsburgh is the other one. But it's not something I'd be overly concerned about, because there are a couple players that either should be there or would have been there if not for certain countries being banned and things like that. But the Leafs also having a lack of draft picks over the last couple of years is also a big factor as well.
Yeah, it seems like we don't have a lot of like super young rookies that are super high picks, like you said, right? And I think part of that is like there's a reason that we're watching Bedard, and he's probably going to go first overall, right? And so there's obviously we all want to see what our rookies look like, what our prospects look like, and what hopefully some of these players are going to be Leafs one day, right? You were tweeting out about Noel Hoffenmeyer earlier and all kinds of our prospects who are doing different things in hockey instead of the World Juniors. And you know, this isn't the Olympics, it's the World Juniors, and they are very popular. But again, I think maybe in the long term I would be concerned if that was what I was focused on. But the fact of the matter is we do have rookies. They're just closer than being eligible to go to the World Juniors at this point, right?
Yeah, there's a bunch of guys that are a lot closer to being that NHL ready guys in that 21, 22 age group that are too old to play at the World Juniors. Like Matt Nyes is a great example of that. He's a November 2002 birth date, so he was eligible to play in the summer, but because he's an 02, not an 03, he wasn't eligible to play again this year. If he was born a month and a half later, he would have been playing at this tournament and playing on the first line for Team USA. So those are the kind of the differences we're talking about. Also, the Leafs this past draft, their first pick in the draft, Fraser Minton, and their second pick, in the third round, Nick Moldenhauer. Those are two guys that are depth candidates for Team Canada. They weren't invited, but guys who are probably going to play on Team Canada next year. Guys who are 2004 birth dates. Fraser Minton's been lighting it up recently. He has back-to-back hat tricks in the WHL playing for Kamloops. He's a guy that probably plays on Team Canada next year. And Nick Moldenhauer is heading to the University of Michigan next summer. And he's probably somebody that, if he has a good start to his NCAA career, could play his way onto Team Canada as well. And then we're going from talking about this year where the Leafs have no prospects whatsoever to all of a sudden having two guys on Team Canada. So that's kind of the differences we're talking about here. It's pretty marginal, so it can get pretty blown out of proportion.
See, Fraser Minton, when I saw him play, so when they had him play with the big boys for the preseason, I had to look because I saw him playing. I'm like, oh, I did the mental math, and I'm like, uh-oh. So I looked it up, and I looked up his birthday on HockeyDB, and it said, so I think it was July 2004.
Yep.
Which means we are now in that threshold where these are fully grown adult hockey players who were not bored when this team was last in the second round. Sorry to bring that up, everyone, but when I saw that birthday, it was sobering. I was like, oh.
It's a tough one.
Of the angels.
Yeah, it was rough. It hurt me. I think it's like July. And I'm like, oh, he wasn't even alive. Or he wasn't even born when Jeremy Roenick scored the goal to knock us out.
Oh man. Yep, that's the state of being a Leafs fan, right?
Yeah.
That was a tough one. That was a really tough one. It just took my heart a dagger straight through the heart right there. So Connor Bedard crushing the World Juniors. Is he the best prospect in your mind since the last Connor McDavid?
I think it's pretty undoubted that he is. When you look at Matthews and the way that he was talked about, it's kind of funny to look back where we usually see prospects are so overhyped and then they come into the league and kind of falter to meet
Lafreniere
expectations.
Right now, right?
Stuff like that. Part of that, it has to do with environment and that kind of thing. But when it came to Matthews, it kind of felt like because we had McDavid the year prior, because we had Eichel the year prior as well, and because Matthews wasn't playing in the NCAA, he decided to go over to Europe in a league where we don't usually see top prospects play in the Swiss league. All those factors kind of came together to kind of underrate Matthews coming into his draft when the comparisons were like, yeah, he could be a really good defensive center, like an Anze Kopitar type and that kind of stuff, which is the talk going into the draft. And because of that, the hype wasn't at the same level for Matthews that it was for a Connor McDavid or anybody before that, if you want to go back another 10 years to look at Crosby or Ovechkin. So when you look at the numbers that he's putting up, when you look at just how dominant he is night in, night out, I think unquestionably Bedard is the top prospect to come through the draft since McDavid.
And it's crazy too because I've seen like a lot of talk. It's not just Connor Bedard too. It's like you have I think Dave Michkov. If I butchered that name, I'm sorry.
It was actually pretty good.
Adam Fantilli. Like this is looking like a draft that people are going to look back on. Like people are saying that this is like I guess the 2003 draft was one of the, or the 2005 draft, like one of those ones that were really had some generational talents.
Fruitful draft.
Yeah, 2015 is the draft that I keep going back to. Not just because you had McDavid at the top, but the number 2 to McDavid that year was Eichel, who was playing in the NCAA, putting up historic freshman production. And that's exactly what Adam Fantilli is doing right now at Michigan. Beyond that, you have guys like Leo Carlsson right now, who's putting up great numbers in the Swedish league. You have Matvei Michkov, who has been the number 2 the entire time, but some weird Russia stuff with his contract situation, not playing in the KHL. A bunch of different factors with him has kind of slid him down the board a little bit. But you've got guys all throughout the top 10 who look like legit high-end potential first-line players. Like Andrew Crystal is in the WHL is putting up historic draft year production.
Fantastic name
behind Bedard. Great name. Yeah. You've got so many high-end pieces there that make this draft so enticing for not just the first overall pick, not just the second overall pick, but basically all the way throughout the first 10, 15 prospects. There's a lot to be excited about in this draft. And it's going to be a lot of fun going up and to the draft and see how the lottery plays out and all that kind of stuff. But at the World Juniors right now, you've got a handful of draft eligible players, not just at the top, but you've got guys for Slovakia playing a big role. You've got even Austria has a pretty notable draft eligible, and David Reinbacher, who's been playing a lot on defense there, who could be a first round pick. Axel Sandin Pellikka, not to be confused with Rasmus Sandin, of course, no relation. I'm sure that'll get confusing once Axel Sandin Pellikka makes the NHL, but he's a guy who's playing top 4 minutes on Sweden, who's a draft eligible. Edward Shala for Czechia is playing on their top line. He's a draft eligible. It's rare to see this many draft eligible players playing such major roles at the World Juniors, but that's just how talented this crop of players is.
And on so many teams, it's not just limited to Canada, United States, and maybe Sweden, or maybe
basically every team at the World Juniors has at least one notable 2023 eligible prospect, except for basically Switzerland and Germany. Basically, everybody else has at least one like potential first rounder,
which is a great thing to see. We love growing the game. We love growing the game overseas. We love growing the game in our own communities. And
Switzerland with a big win this week, Slovakia with a big win this week, Czechia obviously with the opening win against Canada. Has been a really fun World Juniors for those upsets so far.
So as far as prospects, so now obviously you're very into prospects. Who are some
I'm a nerd.
least...
You can just say that.
No, I mean it's great because it's very valuable information. Who do you see as maybe some like I know people like to talk about like Matthew Nyes. Obviously he's been really hyped up and as kind of a savior, but who do you see, along with him as being the next, like, at least prospect that could possibly pop in your opinion?
The next one to be the next Rielly.
Yeah. So Matt Nyes is obviously the top guy, where he's going to play NHL games at the end of the season when he signs after his season with Minnesota. We'll see how far they go in the NCAA tournament. It might make it a bit awkward for him to make his NHL debut. just because Minnesota's a top 1 team in the NCAA. They've got ambitions to go all the way. And if they do go all the way, that's putting him with like a week or two left in the NHL season to sign and make his debut and get in the lineup and see if he can make an impact in the playoffs. I think it's a little unlikely he makes the playoff lineup, but we'll see what he can do in a very small sample at the end of the year. But he's more likely somebody to battle for a roster spot going into next season, maybe playing a bit with the Marlies off the top and then transition him after that. But the guy that I think a lot of people have maybe forgotten about a little bit is Topi Niemela in Finland, just because he hasn't put up the same gaudy offensive totals that he did last year. He hasn't played as much on the power play. If you remember who this is, David Rundblad actually joined his team. A first-round pick way back in the day, was actually traded for the pick that St. Louis used to draft Vladimir Tarasenko. But he's been a journeyman top European defenseman. He joined that team, so he's taken the power play 1 reps. Niemela recently back on power play 1 and actually got an assist the other day. But he's somebody that I think has a lot of those tools that the Leafs really like in terms of their defenseman, where somebody who can move the puck really well, can skate with the puck, makes a lot of offensive zone reads in terms of activating, stuff like that, where he'll come over to the Marlies at the end of the season, and he's kind of clearly the Leafs' top defensive prospect, where there's a pretty big gap between Niemela and kind of the rest of the guys, where you're looking at like your Philip Kral's, William Villeneuve's. The Leafs have a lot of intriguing forward prospects, but on the defensive side, it's Niemela and a bit of a gap. So if you're looking at the top 2 guys that could make legit top 6, top 4 impacts in like a 2 to 3 year span, Nyes, Niemela are the 2 guys you're looking at. And then past that, it's kind of a secondary group where it's guys who are going to take a little bit longer. Your Fraser Mintons, Nick Moldenhauer's, Roni Hirvonen will make his North American debut at the end of the season. So the Leafs have a lot of fun guys to keep an eye on. Ty Voigt is obviously leading the OHL in scoring. He's a small guy, so it's going to be a transition period for him as he makes his AHL
another
debut.
Small Dubas player.
I know, right?
Can
you believe me? That? After their first 2 picks the last 2 years have been 6'2" and 6'3". But anyways, there's a lot of fun guys in the system to watch, but Nyes and Niemela are those 2 guys that look like they're going to be top 6 or top 4 players sooner rather than later.
Yeah. So before we go, I have to bring up the story because we didn't get to it. What do you? Do you think the Leafs will financially recover from their $100,000 fine levied on them by the NHL for the plane leaving early? I couldn't believe this story. Like, to me, like I didn't even want to look at the debate around it because for one thing, if all it made the players' lives easier. Okay, they're like, okay, we're on the freaking tarmac already. Let's just get to freaking St. Louis. But then they find them with $100,000. So they find them like the equivalent of like 1 beer tent on the upper bowl, like no food, nothing, just beer. That was $100,000. So it's like, if you're gonna enforce these rules, enforce the rules. Otherwise, just don't waste your time, right?
It's like, I get it. It's the rule. It's for players' rights, all this kind of stuff. Like, I get they have to enforce it. It's also a little bit silly when it apparently seems like it was the players' ID and the players wanted to do it so that they can have a regular game day where they don't have to fly in the day of, all that weird stuff. But it's MLS-y. This is nothing for them. This is, it's a, what a silly story. And then Keefe getting fined like 3 minutes afterwards, and it's just all like, what?
I bet Kyle texted Sheldon being like, just fucking do it, bro. Like, just do it. Just let her rip.
I found.
You should make a streak out of it. Complain again today.
Oh my God.
I found $5,000 within my couch cushions over here. I'll give it to you. No, I mean, okay, but Keefe, or at least he earned that fine because he was, man, if they lost that last game, I was literally like, we have to check on his health because all of his blood vessels were like straining to not explode when he was a cartoon character. Like, he looked like Ren and Stimpy cartoons. Like,
well, the funny thing is that Keefe was like known for being a hothead with his Marlies days, and he toned it down like early in his NHL tenure, but like it's slowly been creeping back in. And
I love an angry coach.
I don't know if this is his first fine or if he's been fined in the past or whatever it is. I think he's been fined before. I don't even know where I could look that up, but
I have a soft spot for hot head coaches. Like
I wouldn't be surprised if he gets another 25K sometime later this year or something like that. Let's put it that way.
Let's get a hat trick of them. Let's get a hat
like
trick.
why not? Like the best part of a baseball game is when the manager walks to the mound and starts kicking dirt. Or like, I don't know if you remember, I made this example before, but do you remember like the Raptors coach Jay Triano? He was known for breaking the clipboard over his knee. I'm like, I don't know. I find it funny. I'm a child.
Can't do that with the iPad. It's too expensive.
They can afford that too.
I mean, yeah.
Maybe
MLS
they can get the refs some big ones if they do that.
Sure, that would go over well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well,
people in the chat are not happy about Morgan Rielly. I think they might have to trade him.
I think maybe it's time for them to go to bed. Maybe you're all tired. Maybe that's what
I think everyone forgot how it is to watch Morgan Rielly play hockey.
Get a second. We really need a 7th round pick just for Morgan Rielly, 7th round pick. Then you can analyze the 7th round pick
and worry about their contract.
I unironically love 7th round picks way too much. Ryan Tvorberg is my dude.
I love it. I love it. Well, we're going to wrap up for the night. Kyle, thank you for coming on. It's been wonderful to have you here and have all of your wonderful insight into the Leafs rookies and the World Juniors and the game itself and just your wonderful personality. So thank you for coming on
thank
tonight.
you. Yeah, no, it was a fun time. We'll have to do it again sometime when the Leafs don't lose to Arizona.
That would be great. Maybe you can arrange that because I don't know anybody.
I'll try to look forward into the future.
Just send Shani a text and see what happens. I mean, what's the worst that could happen, right?
Yeah.
So signing off for the night. My name is Lauren. Once again, please make sure you hit like and subscribe if you like this channel. Leave any comments in the comment boxes down below. Please share it with your friends. We are going to be back. I will be back New Year's Eve, 2 days from now for the stream.
Same.
Fuad and I are going to be there. Thank you.
Yeah. Who parties on New Year's Eve? This is the real party.
I worked that night too. We're all set.
So classy. Okay, guys.
Come over here. This is the party right here.
Exactly. That's it. You know who's not going to disappoint you? We aren't. We're going to be here. Leafs fans, thank you for coming tonight once again. My name is
Dennis
Lauren.
Mulligan hat trick coming up New Year's Eve. Just a reminder.
A little bit.
Why? That's going to happen. I forgot he plays for them.
Place your bets
anyway,
down.
Let's go to bed.
Okay, guys. You can find me on Twitter. My name is Lauren in the 6.
I'm Fuad. You can find me at Fuad_sports on all the socials.
Kyle, this is where you're going to pump yourself up. Pump all your socials.
All right. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Kyle_Cush, CUSH. If you spell it differently, you'll find a very different person. And you can basically find all my stuff there. I write for The Score. Been doing a little bit of World Junior stuff there. Do a little bit of Substack stuff as well for some Marlies content. I'll give a little sneak peek. Hopefully, doing my mid-season prospect rankings coming up for January 1st. We'll see if that gets pushed a little bit later. It usually ends up getting pushed later, but that's the plan at least right now. And doing some more Marley stuff into the new year. And if you're into motorsports as well, I do a little bit of stuff on YouTube over on the Green Flag. You can check that out.
That's great. I will definitely be
Renaissance man.
Absolutely.
A little bit of everything.
Man of many talents. Well, thank you again for coming on, Kyle. Everybody, have a good night. Please get home safe if you are out, and see you soon. See you Saturday. Have a good night, everybody.
Game over! Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada